Hey everybody, Manny Talabear here. We're now on day 30, and what I'm going to talk about on day 30 for a few minutes is common mistakes that prevent a lot of people from scaling. We're just going to go over some things that you want to think about and the pitfalls that people run into when they start doing this. And so this is a numbers intensive business, and what's great about it, there's not 20 or 30 numbers you really need to be looking at, but maybe four or five. And what we're talking about here is key metrics. And the first mistake a lot of people do is they underestimate what it's going to take to scale. And so they try to start with an ad budget of $500. And so most people who don't scale, or a very, very large percentage of those people who don't scale, they don't scale because they run out of runway. They don't have enough runway to get the airplane off the ground. And to get the airplane off the ground, you have to spend a lot of money testing. And what I mean by testing is you're essentially buying data. You spend a lot of money testing to figure out what doesn't work so that you can figure out what does work. And so if you want to get to, if you want to get to a situation where you're getting buyers at $50 or $100, which is very, very, very difficult, you got to spend a lot of money on it. And the more money you can spend in testing different angles and different hooks and different images and different headlines and different subheads, the more money you can spend on all of that, the quicker you get to something that will work. The problem is most people go into this underfunded because they think that they've got 500 or $1,000 or 2,000, and they're going to just run ads and it's automatically going to work. And I can tell you, it's not automatically going to work. As a matter of fact, it's not automatically going to work for people who do it for a living. That's the reason you have to have a lot of runway. That's the reason you need to go and find money to get this thing off the ground. And so a lot of people have this idea that what they have created is going to be so great that everyone's just going to want to buy it, and that's also not the case. And so what you see is you see people underfunded, they're not taking this seriously, and they never get the thing off the ground. A lot of people get it off the ground a little bit. Unfortunately, they don't continue to roll the money over. And we see a lot of people in the space that do this. And so what will happen is someone will come into the space and they will spend $10,000 and they'll get to 25,000 a month in revenue, which is an amazing amount of money. It's a really good amount of money. If you're making, if you're spending 10,000, you're getting 25,000, you're making 15,000 a month, which is 180,000 a year. What happens though is instead of rolling that money over and continuing to try and get the thing to scale, what they do is they go south. We'll talk about going south in a minute. And going south is simply taking money off the table. It's a term used in poker a lot, and we'll talk about that. And so what they decide they're going to do, it's kind of just, it's pretty much the same, in my opinion, as the people who get caught for embezzlement. They take a little bit of money and it works, and then so they go back and take a little bit more. If you look at in the banking industry, this is what happens. Person works at a bank. They're entrusted hundreds of thousands of dollars, and they do well for 3 years, and then they get a call at 5 till 5, and they need milk and cereal and a bunch of stuff at home, but they don't have any money and they don't get paid until 3 days from now. And so what they do is they pull a little money. They take a little bit of that bank money and they think, this is not a problem. I'll pay it back in 3 days. Nobody will notice. And they do it. They pay it back in 3 days. And then later on, it's a little bit more money. And then what they start thinking about is, I got away with it before, I can get away with it again. And unfortunately, either this gets completely out of control and they take way, way more money than they could ever pay back, or what happens is they take a very, very large amount of money thinking they're going to be able to pay it back, and they can't. And so we see people come in, they launch a funnel, they're spending 10,000 to make 25,000 in revenue, and they start taking 5,000, 7,500 off the table every month. And so they're not reinvesting back into the business, and they created a lifestyle for themselves. But what happens, the problem with Facebook ads is you never know what's going to happen. And so you can be getting leads and conversions at one price, and then the next month everything goes haywire, and it might take a month or two to fix it. Well, if you continue to roll the money over and you've got someone who's an expert at it, if things start going haywire, you have the money to withstand the surge in cost of acquisition. But if you take all the money off the table, and so let's say you're spending 10 and getting 20 back, and you just take the 10 out, and you're every month you're spending 10 and you're just taking all the profit off the table, what happens is one month you have a bad month and then you're out of business because you don't have the money to run the ads again. And so that's what you want to think about. So the first mistake people make is they're underfunded. The second mistake is they underestimate how difficult this is, and they just assume with 500 or 1,000 or 2,000 it's going to work. Another mistake is people go south, and going south is a poker term, and what that means is, if you look at high stakes gamblers, going south is a derogatory term, and people don't want to see anyone doing that. Going south is taking money off the table. So there's 5 people in a game, and they've each got $500,000 in front of them, $2.5 million total on the table. Person A is up 750,000. He takes 500,000 off the table. He's banking profits. He's putting that money in his pocket. People don't like that because now instead of there being X amount of dollars in the game, there's way less than that in the game. And so there's way less for people to win. And then the other thing is the person who's losing wants to have an opportunity to get that money back, but they can't get that money back if the person's taking money off the table. And so that's what you want to think about. So don't take money off the table. Be willing to live way below your means, below what you would like to be at, even when you're bringing in the money. And it's very, very difficult, especially when the offer takes off and you start becoming famous in a niche and you got all this adulation and you're starting to bring in revenue, but you're not spending it. It's very, very frustrating. And so, like I said, I'm not saying not to take any money off the table. I would certainly take money off the table to pay things that are past due. Maybe, after 3 or 4 months, pay investors back, things like that. But I wouldn't increase lifestyle. And I think that's also a huge mistake that prevents people from scaling, because what they do is they create this funnel that's bringing in X amount of dollars, and they start spending all of that money on lifestyle. And so instead of investing back in the business, they're investing in the lifestyle. The problem is it's not sustainable. And if you don't have a lot of back end offers, and if the funnel quits working for a period of time, or your ad account gets shut down, or prices just completely go out of control for a short amount of time, there are all kinds of things that you can run into. But if you continue to roll the money over, you got to keep in mind when you roll the money over, this is what it looks like. Make 15, you bring in 45. The next month you're spending 45. You're not spending it all in one day. You're going to be running, at 45,000. What is that? That's 1,500 a day in ad spend is what you're looking at there. Well, the person running your ads, if things start cracking up, they're going to slow the ad spend down, and they might even pause it for a time to work out the kinks or figure out what's going on. But like I said, the problem is people are, they become less aware. And this is the other thing. Know your numbers. So if you look at everything I'm teaching you and you go back and you're talking to people, and you're talking to people in terms of cost per lead and cost per sale and average cart value and upsells and tripwires, you're talking their language, and it's going to be a lot easier for them to communicate and want to work with you than if you're just talking about, I've got a $1,000 offer, I want to make $1 million, I need 1,000 buyers, and how quickly can we do that? You got to be able to talk their language, and you got to understand all of this stuff. And if you watch Shark Tank, which is very, very interesting, because if you watch Shark Tank, all of their questions are based on everything that I talk about in all of these videos. They talk about how much runway you have, how much money you have on deck. They talk about how much it costs for a lead, how much it costs to acquire a customer, how, where the customers are coming from, how you're acquiring them. Do you have a back end in the business? Do you have proprietary material that people want to buy? Like, all of that's in there. And like I said, if you look at the questions on Shark Tank, you get a lot of value from that. But we are going to end out. But I hope you got some value from this one, and we'll see you all on day 31. Thanks a lot.